Football fans are full of bad takes. Some are a bit mild, others are a bit worse. And the other day while scrolling through Twitter, I came across a post asking football fans to share their wildest opinions. Now, I saw this and I knew I should have kept scrolling, but instead I got curious. I was not disappointed. So, today I'm going to show you the 3 worst takes that I found on the internet. So, go get some popcorn, enjoy the show. Our first take comes from a former Brazilian number 9, Luis Fabiano. He won 2 Europa Leagues with Sevilla and scored over 250 goals. And he was an amazing striker, but apparently not that good commentator. Because he said, I would also break all the records that Haaland has. With that team, with the opportunities he has, I would break his record easily. Haaland has 30 opportunities and scores 3 goals. I would score 20. That's the difference. This comes from a guy that has always been controversial. He won't stop from taking a penalty to engage in a fight with Brazilians' longtime rivals, the Argentinians. And he said, between scoring and fighting, I would rather fight. However, out of all the things you can say about Haaland, not scoring can't be one of them. It's literally the only thing he does. At times, he goes without touching the ball for 70 minutes, but in the first touch of the game, he scores. But people are analyzing the game with what they see. Our eyes deceive us, but numbers do not lie. And because I'm a nerd, I use advanced metrics to show you undeniable proof as to why Haaland is an amazing shooter. We are going to do this by comparing goals to expected goals. Let me explain. Expected goals use data from thousands of similar shots to predict the chance of scoring. It used this goal, this shot, as well as this shot, and came up with the average probability of scoring. Expected goals consider where the goalkeeper is positioned, the defenders around you, where your teammates are, how you receive the ball. It even calculates the technique, the body part, and the ball height. For example, when Bruno Fernandes scored this goal against Galatasaray, he had 0.02 expected goal percentage. That means that the average player would need 50 shots to make this goal. So Bruno has massive shooting accuracy with this shot, which is nothing surprising coming from a midfielder that scored 28 goals in his first season in England. If you take the expected goals of a player and subtract the goals he scored, you have shooting accuracy. If it's negative, the player has bad accuracy. If it's positive, the player has good accuracy. This statistic will change the way you see football forever because total goals scored are incredibly deceiving. For example, who do you think is a better shooter? Player A or player B? Player A scores 40 goals but should have scored 50. Player B scores 30 goals but should have only scored 20. Player B, right? With that in mind, let's compare the 3 best strikers in the Guardiola era. This is Gabriel Jesus, who should have scored 95 goals and only scored 70, which is atrocious. Then we have Sergio Aguero, who should have scored 127 goals and scored 133 goals, which is above the average. And finally, we have Erling Haaland, who should have only scored 98 goals and has 112 goals scored, way above the other City strikers. And now you have undeniable proof that Haaland is scoring more goals than he should. Remember when Pep Guardiola said, "We can't replace Aguero, he's too special"?
We cannot replace him.
Guess what? They did. At 22 years old, Haaland is already better than one of the most legendary strikers that have ever graced the earth. He already is the 14th player with most hat-tricks in football history. You might say it's boring, but that Haaland can score, well, that's just abysmal. Me personally, I enjoy seeing Haaland play. Of course, Vini and Mbappe are more entertaining, but seeing people bounce out of Haaland like they just went against a wall is incredible, or seeing how he finishes so clinically is also very satisfying. This beast that is the 8th fastest player in England, outpaces everyone, is crazy as well. Haaland is a freak of nature. He looks like he was made in a lab. And this take is horrendous. Our next take is one that has been floating around for a while, and it really got me riled up. And the take here is that Ronaldo made a career out of tap-ins. Cristiano Ronaldo. The 6'2", 42-inch vertical, with over 800 goals, master of the game, only scored tap-ins. I've seen my fair share of football takes. This one I've stumbled upon is perhaps the most annoying. Now, I have to admit that Ronaldo scores a lot of tap-ins, such as this 35-meter tap-in, or this tap-in, or when Ronaldo earned the Puskas Award for the goal of the year with this tap-in, or this tap-in where he breaks down a defender and finishes like this, or 2 defenders, maybe 3 defenders. What about this tap-in where he jumps over a man and scores a header as he hangs in the air? And come on, this is only a tap-in backwards. I feel crazy for even needing to say this, but Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't only score tap-ins. The problem here is that some people have what is called recency bias. Recency bias is a tendency people have to give more importance to events that happened recently, while overlooking things that occurred in the past. For example, take a player like Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius Jr. Aside from tap-ins, everyone will agree that they provide more to the team than Ronaldo. But we are not comparing apples to apples. These players are under 25 years of age. Truth is, there is not one thing these players do that Ronaldo didn't do when he was young. You have to remember, in football years, Ronaldo has been old for a decade. So, of course, he started to get more stiff and robotic. Ronaldo had to rely less on his physicality and more on his experience. He stopped moving the ball forward and started to wait for the opportunity in dangerous areas. It doesn't look pretty most of the time. Instead of shaking his defender and using pure skill to get a goal, he'd rather be on the box and anticipate the ball before the defender, making it look like the easiest goal ever. But Ronaldo didn't make a career out of tap-ins and penalties. You don't just stumble upon 800 goals as a winger without having a full arsenal of moves to deploy. During his career, he had speed. He had this patented move called the Ronaldo chop. He could take you off the dribble and finish with either foot, he could dribble straight into a 1v1, he could manipulate the pressing, he had an NBA-worthy jumper, he could score from anywhere, from the right to the left or even the middle. And considering he was a 6'2" footballer, he had a relatively tight control. And why am I even saying this? He's one of the greatest players of all time. Have we lost our minds? Out of all the things a player can do on the pitch, Ronaldo can do all of them. Most world finishers have their fair share of tap-ins, and it's not so easy as they make it out to be, because if it were, everybody would have 1,000 career goals. So, if you only remember the last years, then you only remember mostly tap-ins, but it doesn't change the facts that this is a bad take. Our last tweet basically says that Mbappe without speed is an ordinary player. I find this comment funny because every player is a combination of factors. We can't analyze any player like that, taking away one of his main characteristics and saying that without that, it's just another player is bonkers. Mbappe has speed as one of his main points of his game. Just like other players are more technical. You wouldn't say without technique, Modric would be an average player. If Giroud wasn't so tall, he would never have been a great target man. Or if my grandma had wheels, she would be a truck. These attributes are part of who the player is. But sometimes, players who rely heavily on speed lose some explosiveness. And by the end of their careers, or due to injuries, they end up a shell of themselves. I remember the case of Fernando Torres. Always technically brilliant, his finishes were wonderful. Still, as he suffered injuries, he lost that explosiveness and didn't come close to prime Torres from Liverpool. But we have to remember some things. Mbappe is not just about speed. Look, speed is one major strength in football, but it's not everything. Remember when the fastest man alive, Usain Bolt, tried to play football? Everybody mocked him for it. Mbappe has a sense of finding space, positioning ability, and he finishes instinctively. Plus, his passing skills are far from being bad. He's a generational talent, and if you're worried that one day he will lose speed, well, don't worry. Players adapt as their careers progress. Many pros go through that. It happened to Neymar himself. He was also super fast on the wing, and then, when he lost some of that explosiveness, he started playing more in the midfield, and he didn't stop from being a top tier player. It's worth remembering that there are plenty of forwards who don't have the greatest speed. For example, Harry Kane is a guy who was never crazy fast, but he knows where to position himself at the perfect moment. Mbappe is not even 26 yet, who says that by the end of his career he wouldn't have adapted his game. He has all the ability to do that, because he is indeed outstanding. And that's all for today, guys. By the way, let me know in the comments what your hot takes are, and until next time.